Good morning. I meant to have this posted a little earlier, but we had a Zoom meeting with the president of college, so that finished, and now I'm getting this taken care of. On the screen, of course, you'll see the modules. If you will, I'm going to be talking about the essay that's due on the 15th. If you'll scroll down, you'll see that the essay is listed under Major Essays module, and you'll see an example of works cited page, so that you'll understand how this is to look. It should appear for you when you click on that, and that gives you an idea of how it looks. I even have the textbook for you. This is an indication of how you can do one of the videos if you use that for part of your essay. This is how you would do the textbook, or you can also do it this way, listing all three names, or simply putting the first name and then et al., which does the same. And so that's how that will look. I also have available for you following this, if this will call. There you go, come on. Well, it's not going to work. There we go. I have the Purdue Lab link, so if you click on that, that will take you to the Purdue Lab, online writing lab, where they talk about MLA formatting guides, in case you do not recall everything. And so it talks a little bit about how to do a work site like this. Also has about the general formatting guide, how to do citations, the details that you will need for your paper are all listed there. I have a video for you that also goes through the details of the MLA style. And so this, as it says here, shows the logic of the new changes and what sort of differences there may be from one to the next. Change has been since 2016, so most of you should be familiar with that. I then have a second video that also goes through about how to format your essay properly. You can watch that video. It's really fairly short. As you'll see, it's less than 6 minutes. So it doesn't take that long to go through it, and it just simply goes through about how to write the essay in the MLA format, which I will be expecting. I do have an example of the essay. This is not over one of your topics, but you can see how this essay is written, how it's detailed, and how the citations are included. If I do that up this way, you'll see that again, information being used from different sources. You'll see here references to the textbook, Cunningham et al. But this is to a different source, de novo here, paste here. And as you go through and you look at the details and how it's used, if you go through the end of this essay, you'll see that these are the sources that were used and how they were then incorporated by the student into the essay. So that gives you an idea of how it should look, and also a little bit about the length of it, the details that I will be expecting for it. This was a good essay. It's not, at the very top. It's not at the very bottom. It's just a good, solid essay to give you an idea of how to discuss one of the topics that you're offered. And then the next part gives you the topics. And so we're going to look at this. Try to get this to zoom a little bit so you can see it a little more easily. You're asked to choose one of the topics that are listed below. These will require you to do a little bit more research for this. You are expected to write approximately 1,000 words with the hallmarks of good writing. That means correct grammar, mechanics, sound writing that shows your ability to interpret and explain the topic. You should avoid errors in punctuation, mechanics, and grammar. I not only teach humanities, but I also teach English, so I will expect you to follow proper MLA standards for this. And as you work on this particular essay, you have a choice of different topics, which are listed here for you. So you do have 9 different topics. You do not write about all of them. I had a student one time want to know if he was supposed to write an essay over each of the topics. Now you only choose one topic of the 9. The questions are here just to give you some points that you should look at. Do not try to address each question in a separate way, but instead use those to give you the areas that you need to cover as you're setting up your essay. For instance, on number 1, about the Black Death and its effect, the idea about different areas in North Africa, Central America, what we now call present-day Russia, It's not called Russia in that way. It was in individual states, the Middle East, the consequences of those areas, not only in Europe but other areas around the world, how that affected. I thought this was an appropriate topic for us to look at, considering the times that we're now in, where we have a pandemic that's impacting globally. Well, this was a pandemic in this era, in the 14th century essentially, where you had populations throughout the globe essentially impacted. About the only area that we do not have any impact, as far as we can tell from all historical records and findings, is what we call the North and South American areas. As far as we can tell, those areas were not impacted by what we call the Black Death or the Black Plague during this era. But basically you're going to discuss how the Black Plague, if you choose this topic, impacted lifestyles, choices, decisions, growth, development, technology, literature, art. All those were impacted in some way. And so I would like you to think about all those as you're working on those. And so that's if you choose that topic. Chapter 11, and about the Gothic style that was really predominant in Northern Europe. Never caught on in Italy, but what I would like you to do is look at the architecture as a style. And in the 1100s to the 1300s, it's 12th to 14th century. So that the Gothic style was not really part of that Italian architecture. Rather, what was the style? Discuss very specific examples as you contrast it with the Gothic style, what was taking place in Italy, and how that happened and why it happened. Why, again, as it says here, the verticality of the Gothic style was not part of Italian architecture per se. So I'd like you to do a comparison and contrast of the styles, to discuss what it was that was taking place in Italy in regard to architecture. So you'll focus on architecture. That means building styles, the development of cathedrals in Northern Europe as opposed to what was taking place in Italy at this time. And so you're going to look at those key examples. The third topic talks about the Medici family, prominent in Florence, had a large impact. They had a large impact early, but they lose out during the time in the 1500s. So in the 1300s, the Medici family is really prominent, and had issues. And then the 1400s, large, but then they fell from favor or power, if you will, in Florence during a lull. But then they moved back to prominence in the 1500s, and you get to research that one. So it's going to take you to having to go read some other documents, look at other information beyond what's just in the textbook. And so that one will require more research. In the next topic, in chapter 12, you have a little bit of excerpts from The Prince by Machiavelli. And I ask you to consider how that advice that he offers was employed and is employed. So you get to argue a little bit about agreeing with or disagreeing with Machiavelli's advice, and how his views, as it says here, view of humanity, is it really pessimistic, or is it something else? Is his view maybe practical, realistic? And so you get a chance to discuss the Machiavellian attitude and way of governing his advice to a prince. And I ask you to take those points and make a sound argument about Machiavelli's views. So this is really an opportunity for you to argue, write an essay in which you argue regarding the Machiavellian attitude toward government. So you get a chance to read through The Prince. The excerpts are in the book, and you can also look at some of the other aspects that are offered in The Prince if you want to read through that book. And then explain how this works. As it says here, can a state be truly successful while ruling in an unethical manner? And again, this seems to be a topic that's very appropriate with what we have seen taking place in our society over the last few weeks. So this gives you a chance to talk about Machiavellian attitudes and views. Machiavelli, some of his points are sort of condensed into some phrases. The expression, keep your friends close but your enemies closer, is a Machiavellian perspective. This idea is better to be loved than better to be feared than to be loved is also Machiavellian. So you get to look at some of those views and apply that to how state operate. In a sense, the state, that would be a government. Next one, for those of you who are more into art, this gives you a chance to talk about painting styles particularly in Venice, the Venetian style, as opposed to the style that was prominent in and around Rome. You should look at very specific examples, just discuss the styles, interpretation of subjects, use of color, line, space, etc., where you get to discuss those two prominent styles that would have influence on other art that's going to develop in and around this time and later. The Venetian style, and then what we now think of as more of the Italianate or Roman style, how that impacts. And again, you're going to be looking at art, the painting, not architecture, not sculpture, but painting styles, where you get a chance to look at the scope and the size and drama that these art schools, these two styles, really had about them. The next topic asks you to look at composers. So those of you who are a little bit more involved with music, this gives you an opportunity to look at that, where you get to research the Venetian school, because again, Venice is going to have a very prominent role in influencing others, and you have Gabrieli and the other composers of this style, which is in the 1500s. And should they really be considered Renaissance composers, or is this really how the Renaissance period of music history is defined? And you get to argue about this. Maybe this is a different, a throwback style, or if this is an anticipatory style rather than a Renaissance style. And so I give you opportunity for those of you who are musically inspired and inclined. You get a chance to discuss this aspect, because the Venetian school was really a very prominent and very impactful school. And when we look at what these artists, what these musicians were doing. The next allows us to look a little bit more into science. For those who are more scientifically oriented, again, with humanities, we get to cover a number of different areas that have impacted humanity in a number of ways. These are scientists who had various views. I ask you to look at two of these and their contributions. So you do not discuss all four, only choose two. These are individuals who had very prominent impact on science as we now know it, as it says here, what each did, how they were regarded in their own era, and how they're now looked at. Harvey, of course, Copernicus, probably most of you know Napier and Gilbert. You may not be quite as aware of, but our book does mention them. So you get a chance to look at these and talk about two of them and the impact that they have had. And again, it will require you to do more research beyond just the textbook as you want to look at these. And again, talk about how they have had impact both then, during their lifetime, and later as we look at them. So you get you a chance to look at those. The next topic expands beyond just a particular one. We've had, the previous topic was just about science. The one before that was about music. The one before that was about art. The one before that was about architecture. Well, this one's asking you to look at a little bit of all of those: music, art, architecture, and literature of the Baroque world. And you get to use specific examples, and you get to talk about these 5 points. I'll give you bulleted points that you need to make sure that you discuss how your examples relate to one or more of these points. So as you discuss the overall Baroque movement and what it represented and what it was, you'll then want to discuss about specific examples of music, art, architecture, literature, and how each one of those examples covers some of this, not necessarily every one of these. You'll find, of course, the discussion in your textbook useful, but you'll also probably find, if you will watch the videos that are provided about the Baroque, or as the narrator talks, he calls it the Baroque. He's British, so he pronounces it that way. We generally say Baroque. If you'll listen and watch those videos, you'll find a number of details there also, which are very influential, and then you'll want to do a citation for that. So if you choose this particular one, again, you'll cover a little bit of areas, music, art, architecture, and literature. And again, you'll want to use an example or specific example for each one of these, so you have a chance to discuss how that example for music, for instance, represents something, one of these or more than one of these traits. Same with the art, architecture, and literature. The last topic deals with philosophy, and I've chosen one particular philosopher who's mentioned in your book, in this case Spinoza, where you get a chance to read a little bit. We have some of it in the textbook, but you'll probably want to go and read a little bit more than what's offered, probably more than quite a bit more. So you want to read some more about Spinoza and his philosophical views and points, where you get a chance to discuss especially his views on God and reality, and you get to argue where you agree with his point about metaphysics, which means how the world is. Metaphysics is a particular type of philosophy where they're trying to look at fundamentals. Metaphysics is an attempt to explain the world from a fundamental level, where things start. Hence why it has here about the nature of reality, where it starts, how it is, what really makes something real. Where you get a chance to discuss if you agree with him or not, why his views hold up or do not hold up, where you get a chance to argue his philosophic stances. You want to summarize a little bit about his life and work for about a third or so of the essay, and then you want to spend the remaining part, 600 words or more, I would think, or probably more, in which you discuss his metaphysical stance and the perspective he has, where you'll want to take time to discuss what his views were, and then where he's right, where he might be wrong. That gives you an opportunity to do all of that. So this is the essay that is due this particular by the end of this week. It is an essay that is a major part of your grade, so hopefully you'll get that taken care of. Hopefully you're following along and going through the modules. And give me just a moment. This is clicking up. There we go. So again, the essay is under the module called Major Essays. It's right before the exams, but you're, of course, reading through chapters 11 and 12. I have the preview for the chapter, again, preview for the chapter 12. I have some details here for you where you can click on these. You might find it interesting reading a couple of these articles here. This one should open. And some of you who's mentioned in your textbook, literally, you'll see this was just last fall. Painting that hung for years in the kitchen was found, as it tells you in here. It was a 10-inch panel, was found in June. An older French woman in Compiègne, north of Paris. Family thought it was just an icon. They were getting ready to clear out the house, and it was just located, and it was taken to basically an art house, and brought to, as it says here, it was one of the first work to be painted by him, the father of Western painting, Cimabue, who's mentioned in your textbook. It was, as it's right here, it tells you, it was evaluation of the contents of the house of an older French woman. They were trying to clear out the house and were literally just trying to figure out. They had an estate agent come in to look over what was around, and this had been basically hanging up just outside the kitchen. And everybody just assumed it was just a casual painting. This is what it looked like. They didn't really think too much of it. So the estate agent was going through and recognized, because they brought in somebody who knew about art, and he looked at it and went, no, this is not just some casual little painting. And so it was instead moved on to an art expert, and they determined it was indeed an original Smithview. And the consequence was that it sold, as you'll see, for over $20 million. So again, things are still being found that have been lost. In chapter 13 and 14, I do have a lecture that I recorded for the spring classes. You might want to go through it. Ignore anything that talks about assignments for the spring class. But you might want to go through the lectures I have here for 13 and 14, where I do go through those details. Again, it's just a very simple recorded Zoom lecture, so I have that available for you. And then it has some details here, again, that you might find useful for some of the details that are offered there. And then for chapter 15, I do have some details for you, and again, there's a Zoom meeting there as well. And these are the ones that I was telling you about in regard to the essay topic about the Baroque. These are really entertaining and very informative videos. Vladimir Januzak, I usually just call him Wally. It makes it easier. What he does in these videos, it actually takes you to the places, takes you to the museum so you can see the works of art, and he gives you a first-hand experience of it. Give you a brief aspect. If you just click on the link here, you'll be asked to log in, and so you'll log in with your ID, and then click, and it will take you to the library. Give it just a moment. It'll take you to the videos. And the videos are just wonderful to watch because, again, he gives you the details. He shows you, for instance, when you go here, this part here, we'll just click to that second. There's a little part here that we have to have. But you can see that as it starts up here,
the architect of this astounding square,
he gives you a sense of St. Peter's Piazza, where you can see the size, the scope of what is done, and he tells you all about it. He gives you the sense of detail about how it came about and the discussions that are here, and you can listen to it.
That encircles you, gathers you up. It's like a giant pair of arms. Now, 300,000 people can fit in here. That's 3 times more than Wembley Stadium. And every single one of them gets this big hug from Bernini's Piazza.
And that's one of the major aspects that this video series will do. It will take you through the different architecture styles. It will take you through the major artists of the movement. He'll take you to the different places, some that are mentioned in our textbook, some that are not. And he goes into some of the details. He talks about the Baroque movement and how it spreads not just in Italy but elsewhere into Spain and through other areas. And so you have this whole series that are offered. It's just a wonderful series. You also have one coming up where he does about the Rococo movement as well. So you hear the second link takes you to Spain and the other areas where you have Velázquez, Caravaggio. He does a wonderful discussion about Caravaggio. And then the third part goes on in how the Baroque moves into England. He looks at some of the details there, so you get a sense of that aspect. So again, it's just a wonderful series to look at and to go through, because it gives you so much more detail than the textbook does. And the pictures in our textbook are fine, but he takes you to the actual locations where the architecture is. He takes you to the location where the various works of art are, so that you can see the scope, the size, the immensity of some of these artwork and some of these architectural designs. And he really goes into detail there for you. So I think you can find that very useful. I also have for you a few links in regard to music. This is a beautiful performance of Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Julia Fisher is just an accomplished musician. She's not only an accomplished violinist, as she plays here, she's also an excellent pianist. And so this gives you a chance to see the production of the music, so you can watch over those. So you have a number of different areas that you can look at. I do have notes for you over the Baroque here, and I have just some key details here that I have typed up for you. What takes place, what it's about, some of the key details. If you find any of these useful, if you're writing about the Baroque and you want to use some of these notes, of course you're free to do so. I just try to cover some very quick details, some of the key people. Here's about St. Peter's that we were just watching. Januzak Wally was looking at. Just sort of give you a brief aspect. A little bit about Vivaldi here, and this idea about the Four Seasons. And again, you can listen to that. Caravaggio, as I mentioned, and again, some beautiful discussion and illustrations of his work that are done in the video series over the Baroque that Januzak does. Again, Jeszelewski, another major figure. She's in her textbook, and you'll find that useful. Other aspects are offered here, details. Again, I just try to give you some of the details that are offered here. So just try to hit some key points. Takes you on through some of the other areas. And so if you find any of those useful in your discussion, of course, you're more than welcome to use some of those to help you in your discussion if you're choosing that particular topic. Again, I have a meeting recording. It's just a Zoom meeting from the springtime where I go through the chapter and go over some details for you. But this gives you an opportunity to look at some of those. You do not have an exam over these chapters, instead of the essay. And again, I'm going to look at the summer schedule. You'll see that we're in week 3 and you have the major essay due. That's due by June 15th. That's this coming week. You'll note that that takes you to a Monday. I try to have the work due on a Monday, so if any questions come up over the weekend, I'll have a chance to get back with you before the assignment is due. We do have that essay, and then next week, what's upcoming are again 4 chapters this time, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And then you have an exam over those 4 chapters. Instead of 5 chapters, it's just 4 chapters, and it focuses primarily on areas outside of Europe for a change. We haven't had too much of that. It's one of the unfortunate aspects about how the book is organized. We tend to spend more time with Europe. This is the way the textbook is set up. Most humanities textbooks are set up this way. It spends more time with Western civilization, and therefore focuses more on Europe. And we finally get around to North and South America in chapter 16, and then we go back to China and India and Japan in chapter 17, back a little bit to Africa in chapter 18. It's not that life was not taking place in these areas, in the Western Hemisphere, in the Far East, in Africa, Sub-Sahara Africa especially. It's not that great events were not taking place. They were. You have wonderful cultural development occurring in each of these places. It's just that what was recorded or what was known was more prominent in Europe, and so we spend more time there. But one of the major aspects in China, for instance, in your book, what you're covering right now, is going to herald the idea of the printing press, the development of the printing press, and movable type with Gutenberg. The Chinese had that about 400 years before. They just didn't tell anybody. Same thing with African cultures, the organization there, and the development of cities, large cities. That was occurring there as well as in Europe and other places. Japan had large cities. You have China with large, complex city, urban centers. In India, you had urban centers going back, to BC times. It's just that those areas were not explored or known, not recorded and discussed, presented to anyone else. They were sort of isolated. They kept to themselves. Same taking place in the Americas. The cultures that were developing there just didn't get explored or offered. They stayed in their own locations. They were very well developed. The Maya calendar was a very precise calendar. They had everything worked out. They actually had two calendars that they used. So when you're going through week 4, chapters 16 through 19, you're going to go away from Europe for a while and then go back. In chapter 19, you go back to the 18th century, and we're going to have more about Europe and taking place there and the revolutions that are occurring, the changes in art, music, and literature. And then as you get into chapter 5, we have, again, more about America. The United States becomes a much more prominent player in world events, and then it takes us to the end. And again, these particular week, as we get to the end of the semester, again, you only have 4 chapters to cover there. So you have the exam that's coming up for chapters 16 through 19, and then the final exam will be over chapters 20 through 23. It's actually the 4th exam, not the 3rd. I'll need to change that very quickly. But that final exam is going to be over chapters 20 through 23. It's not going to be a comprehensive final. But what you need to be working on this week is the essay. The topics, again, you'll find under the module. And bear with me as it's trying to click back here. Here we go. The module called Major Essays. And again, I have an example for you. It's not over one of your topics. I have the details about how MLA format should look. And then the topics are located here. And this is also where you will submit the essay. For those of you who are not familiar with Turnitin, once you click on what I just did and you see this come up, scroll down to the bottom. And here you'll see a gray bar. And once you click on that gray bar, it will then take you to Turnitin. Now, in my particular case, since I'm a student, I'm not a student, I don't have the same situation here. It tells me I don't have anything to do, but what you can click on here will be to submit. You'll have an actual button that'll ask you to locate the assignment. You'll want to have it saved as a file, and then you simply browse your computer, click on your assignment, and upload it from there. Mine, this is basically for me to grade, so it's a little different. But what you want to do, I'll have to refresh this so the gray bar will reappear. Here's the assignment. You can download the topic here. And then underneath it, you will see this gray bar. You click on this. That will take you to Turnitin. You will then upload your essay accordingly. If you have any questions about that, how to upload to Turnitin, underneath the Start Here assignment, Start Here module, there is a submitting a paper to Turnitin discussion. And as I said, when you click on it, you're going to see a Submit Assignment button. And then it'll ask you to find either upload it from your computer, which is what you want to do. Likewise, underneath the Start Here module, I do have for you feedback on the essays, how to locate it. Once you submit your essay next week or earlier, I will then go through and grade it and score it. And yes, as I said earlier, I also teach English, so I will be applying all the details there. You'll click on whatever it is. In this case, it'll be the major essay. I'll just give you an example title here. You'll go to grades, click on the assignment, Click on the name of that assignment, then click on the percentage point that's in white characters. Then it'll say, have a message may say can't see the originality. Just click OK. Don't worry about that. Your document will appear, and there will be little blue bubbles at different places. Click on those. You'll start seeing the comments, and you'll start seeing the other aspects that are marked on your essay. So this tells you how to find the feedback. And again, you'll find the details here under the Start Here module. So if you have questions about how do I submit it to turn it in, if you don't remember it, click here, and then also how to find your feedback. So again, when you go to the essay to make the submission, you click here where it says Major Essay, and then scroll down below. You'll see this gray box, and you'll click there. Do not click on SpeedGrader. Do not submit it through SpeedGrader. It will not work that way. Rather, you need to click here. It'll take you to turn it in. You'll see that my URL here changed to turn it in. And you'll see here there's nothing here yet because, again, as the instructor, I'm supposed to be grading papers, not submitting them. But you'll have a different look to yours. It will show you a red button. So again, that's how you will submit. If you have any questions about how to submit it, again, look through the Start Here module, click on the essay, click on this gray bar, submit your essay. Again, if you have any questions, you can email me. I hope that you're enjoying the chapter, reading through this. This is some of my favorite parts. The Baroque period is just one of those eras that is just such a change, such a dramatic development in a number of areas that took place. As the Renaissance really pushes through, we move into the later Renaissance, as some would call it, the High Renaissance, some will call it, and then moving into what we call the Baroque, which some say is still part of the Renaissance, others say it's a separate era. But you just have such great development during this time. The music is wonderful. The art is just remarkable. And the literature starts developing in a number of ways from the 1300s on. And again, this is taking on into the era of Shakespeare and beyond for English literature. English literature sort of flourishes during this time. So again, hopefully you're enjoying this. Your topics are here where you get a chance to choose one of these and write your essay. It will require you to do some research. If you have questions about how to find some information, one of the wonderful aspects, we do have the library resources here available for you. You simply click on this. It may ask you to log in. You can go to the research databases and look up some details here, or you can simply click here. For instance, if I were going to look up Spinoza, I could type in Spinoza here, do search. Since I've already logged in, I shouldn't have to log in again, but it might ask you to log in as I did earlier, and then this one takes you into Spinoza, some basic concepts of his. And what you want to do is make sure you get full text where you get the full articles. Again, this starts your research, gives you some background on him. His basic concepts. This is a really nice book. If you click on this, it will show you an abstract, a little detail about what's in the book. And then you simply click over here to the EPUB full text, because this is a whole book, in case you're wondering. And you can, again, scroll through, go to the next page. And here are the different chapter aspects. It's a series of articles. And again, you can look at these different articles as different sources. One of the major aspects that it writes about here that you'll find useful about God, the attributes. Again, Spinoza has some key points why he looked at, and so you might find it useful to look at these details as this particular author is looking at what Spinoza said, how he viewed it. So it's an interpretation of Spinoza in that way. Let me look down here. I think it's this one. No, this one. This is about Spinoza's interpretation of Spinoza's view about politics. where it goes through those details. And so again, a way of looking at that one for Spinoza. You can also go over here and look at one of our more specific databases if you want to. For instance, Religion and Philosophy collection, you click on it. And you can type in Spinoza here. Oops, I didn't click. You can look at Spinoza and ethics, and it will search for those. And you have a number of different sources there as well that you can look at, and a discussion of those that you can deal with. And again, you will want full text, so you can have the whole article or the whole book. And again, something to look at and to discuss. Again, this serves you as a really nice way of looking at it. And this one, the companion here actually goes through and discusses some of the key points. It's not a very long article here. It's just, again, a little companion piece. And again, if you click on the PDF, it'll download it, take you to this. And you can, of course, zoom in, make it bigger. And it just goes through and looks at certain key points in Spinoza's views. And that's all that's designed to do. So again, ways of finding, same if you're looking up the artwork of the Baroque period, you want to find some more details about it, you can look at those and just type it in here. So hopefully this is going to help you as you get to work on your essay. Hopefully you're spending some time going through the chapters, getting those read. Again, I do have some previously recorded lectures available for you. Excuse me. For chapters 13 and 14, I left those up here. Again, all this is a brief discussion that I recorded for the spring semester as we had to go to lockdown.
Well, good day. Welcome back to TVCC. It's been a while.
I did. I simply went through
covering the information.
I simply went through the textbook, called up on the screen, and discussed it, and went through the details there for you. If there's any references to any assignments due, you can basically ignore those. But this gives you a chance to look at some of those details. So I'm going to close that out. So hopefully if you have any questions, you can always send me an email. Let me know. And we'll hopefully, I'm looking forward to reading your essays over the topics. And so I hope you have a good week. Hope everything's going well for you. I hope you're safe and healthy and everything is going well for you. And I will try to do another lecture next week for you to get that posted. If there's nothing else, I have no other comments. Again, you can always email me. I'll have this posted for you as soon as I can get this uploaded.